Hello guys and welcome back to the Motor Recon podcast. I'm your host Adam. I'm joined again today by Rob. What we're going to do today is, because we just noticed something in the news, that BMW are scrapping the i8. They are stopping making the car.
Well, and we were both quite taken aback by this, partially because we both like the i8, I think it's safe to say.
It's not a bad looking car.
Considering it came out in 2014, we would both argue that it was quite ahead of its time.
Yeah, I think they could release that car tomorrow and people would still think that's a brand new car.
Same holds up for the styling.
Yeah.
I mean, especially after sort of like the mid-life cycle phase.
Yeah, sort of refresh when they launched the Roadster as well, didn't they?
But even the 2014 model, we both happen to quite like. And also to do with as well, obviously, BMW are one of the main manufacturers in Formula E as well.
Yes.
So I thought that the electric technology... So maybe they're discontinuing this because it may be replaced with a fully electric sports car that might roll out.
Yeah, because you did mention, didn't you, that they actually aren't planning on doing a direct replacement for this car.
Yeah.
But like I say, I also have my strong suspicions that something fully electric is coming. Maybe down the line, a couple of years, but something will come and replace it later
Something
on.
that utilises their Formula E technology. Because let's be honest, just like Jag have tried to do with the I-Pace, obviously, the whole point of being in that sport is to try and push electric technology, make it cooler. This is the prime opportunity with the i8 going out to put your Formula E tech onto the streets.
Yeah, and I think they might also do it in more normal cars. I know when they launched the i3 and the i8, they were just doing a bit of futuristic concepts, what could come, what could happen when things do go electric. But obviously now I think they've realised people just want a normal car.
So I think no one is adverse to the i3's technology.
No, it's just the styling.
It's the styling, exactly. What I would say is if you drop the i3 architecture into a 3 Series or a 1 Series, I'd find that a very attractive package.
Yeah,
looks like a normal car.
Much more beneficial, I think.
Yeah.
For sales figures, anyway. So what we'll do, just really quickly go through some of the stuff. So we had a look, because obviously the i8, in a nutshell, was meant to be an economical sports car. Fast when you want it to be, but also, if you're just plodding along, can be quite eco. Now, we did look up some real-world figures on this. Here in the UK, again, we have used this in the past. There's a website called Honest John, where people can submit their real-world numbers for what they actually get on a car, and they will compare it to what the manufacturer's claims are.
I always consult this before I consider buying a car because it's a genuine representation of what it'll actually do in the real world. There's a good number of i8s in this as well. So there's 21 real MPGs submitted. So there's a good little sort of test base to get these figures from.
Yeah. So the range actually does go from 44 to 60 MPG, and the average is out at 50 and a half, which I don't think is too bad. If someone out there is getting 60, it is possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is possible. Yeah.
But the average across what everyone is getting is 50.5.
Now, this is far less than what BMW obviously claimed in the sort of official MPG figures.
They do actually claim in the original i8 it did 134.5 MPG, according to this. And obviously, if your averaging is only 50.5, you're achieving 38% of what the manufacturers claim.
Now, I do think that rules on testing for miles per gallon and efficiencies have changed since then, to be fair, because we've now got the WLTP cycle, which is meant to take hybrid cars into sort of a more real-world test, because the reason they would get such fantastic scores is because I'm guessing the old system...
You're on a rolling road, I think.
Well, it was probably designed in a time when hybrid vehicles weren't really a thing.
Yeah.
So it just probably didn't take that into account. So obviously, it only gets 38% of what the manufacturer claims. So although that looks bad, what they are actually getting in the real world for a sports car is 50.5 MPG. Well, you'll notice as well, even the lowest MPG submitted of 44 is better than what the competitors are getting.
Oh, significantly. Yeah. And we will go into a few of those, what we think would compete. Now, I know when BMW launched this, it was very heavily pitched against the 911. So we have got a 911 in the lineup, and we've also put something, what we would consider a competitor for this. Maybe not necessarily on price, but type of car. So we looked at a couple of things. So just quickly, though, we'll go over a few stats for the i8, just because it'd be worth doing. So it actually has a combined horsepower figure of 357.
Yeah.
Now that's key in this argument, because that's quite a lot. Obviously, you are getting that from a two-system thing. So you've got the 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engine from a Mini.
Yep.
and then you've got a 7.1 kilowatt battery.
Well, it's lithium ion, so it's not like it's nickel or whatever.
No.
It's not like it's the Prius. So, and this is why it comes back to my argument of I genuinely do think that this was a very futuristic car.
Yeah.
It's very ahead of its time.
It is, and again, styling-wise, I can't see anything wrong with it. The one thing we will just mention on here as well, when the European driving agencies tested this car, originally they would claim it would do 23 miles of electric-only range, so that's just on the batteries. But when the United States Environment Protection Agency tested it, it was realistically only getting 15. Now, they might do, well, they obviously do something very different, but we're not sure what.
And I would even say, even at the lower end of that spectrum, 15, that would, say for example, if I was to use the i8 as a daily driver, which with the price of the i8 coming down to what it has in the used market, is an entirely plausible thing for a person to do.
Oh, 100%.
15 miles would be enough to cover the city part of a lot of people's commutes,
Yeah, and
or heavy town
you
parts.
perhaps could charge it at work when you're there. I don't know if you have things. I'm assuming you will be in a uni that you can.
Yeah, or more likely as well, because it's got the 1.5 3-pot engine. When you're on the motorway, it'll charge the batteries back up anyway.
Well, yeah.
So once
exactly.
you're out of town, it'll take care of itself. So yeah.
All right. So I say one thing that this was always pitched against was the Porsche 911. Now specifically, we have here the 2015 to 2019 Carrera, because price-wise it was roughly the same. And also it's some sort of at the same time they were out, so 2015 up to 2019, which would stand against the i8. Now this is where it gets a lot worse. Obviously this doesn't have hybrid, it's just your rear engine Carrera.
It's 3 cylinders up.
So it's a 6-cylinder, not a 3-cylinder, but this is claiming an average of 28.4 in the real world.
Yeah.
Now that's where I think the i8 is sort of coming out on its own in that sense, because like
it's
you
nearly
say,
half.
Yeah, exactly. It's nearly half. People did complain, like you say, that it was miles off what BMW were claiming, but when you compare it to what it is against, it's a lot better.
Yeah. We'll just have a quick nosy here. It's worth mentioning, though, that the amount of submitted MPGs for this, for the 911, exactly. So it's not as big of a test bed. So it's not exactly comparable with the figures we got for the i8. But I think the point stands. It was never gonna. It would, even with a huge test bed, you'd never get 50 MPG.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't.
And I suspect the reason there is a lot less for the 911 than there is on the i8 is because they never marketed the i8 as an economical car.
Sure,
it's a baby supercar in many respects, isn't it?
It's better than a lot of supercars.
It's better than a lot of supercars.
Better than a lot of supercars.
And even 28.4 for what I would consider quite a high-end sports car is not that bad.
No, it's not.
I've seen a lot worse, that's for sure.
And obviously, as well, it does the real MPG of 28.4 is a lot closer to the manufacturer's claimed
it's 83% of the 34 claimed.
Exactly. Whereas you compare that to the i8, where you're only getting sort of like 38%.
And I also think the reason the BMW had a lot more submissions is because people bought the i8 thinking you'd get this mega mileage, and then no one is, and they were quite angry, so they obviously vented that frustration, perhaps.
Yeah, it would be a case to say that BMW might have actually shot themselves in the foot there.
Yes.
Because if you'd have told people outright that the car can only do a maximum of 60 mpg, that's still very impressive in the market that it's in.
Yeah,
and
I
people,
think the people would have just happily accepted that, I think.
And you wouldn't have that angry backlash because it is claiming nearly what the manufacturer said it could do. So there isn't that controversy.
And everyone always loves a bit because I've never had a car that's done exactly what the manufacturer has said, and that's obviously to be expected.
Yeah, exactly. No, and no one's complaining that, but to be so far off, I mean, as in, if BMW are literally saying in their sales room to prospective customers, you can get yourself over 100 mpg, because if the claim figure's 134, that shouldn't, in your mind, be all that unrealistic. That's still 30 off.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were getting, like, if you were sort of getting like 110,
yeah,
it'd be a mega, but obviously they're not. So yeah, I think they do think they shot themselves in the foot, but let's compare it sort of to the 911 in a way. So what were you getting for your 911? Again, remember, roughly the same amount of money, same time being out. So you got 3.8 litre flat six, which obviously is compared to the hybrid 3-cylinder in the BMW. 430 horsepower, so it's significantly more in terms of power, up from the 357 of the Beamer. Transmission-wise, you were getting a 7-speed, where I think the BMW was 7 also, automatic. but 0 to 60 in 3.8 compared to 4.4. So it's not actually that much faster.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And in the real world as well, which you've got to consider this, because I might add as well, the i8 never sort of pitched itself as a track car, I don't think.
No, I wouldn't. It's too heavy.
But I think the point with it as well is, as in the real world, 4.4 seconds compared to 3.8 seconds, it's less than a second in it.
Yeah.
And you're never going to really notice. 4.4 is still very fast.
Where you would probably notice it is on a tight, twisty country lane.
Sure, yeah.
The 911 is renowned for being quite a nimble little machine, and it's a bit lighter.
Although that being said, I think the i8 could hold its own with, four-wheel drive and electric torque going on as well.
It has a carbon tub as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But the 911 is 187, but the i8 is obviously limited to 155. I'm sure it can go faster should you took that limiter off.
And again, in the real world,
you're never
going to see it anyway.
No. So, a little third rival we were looking at, just because we do think it competes with it in the type of car. Perhaps it might be a higher model that you would consider in this scenario, sometimes just for pricing, really. But it's the Jaguar F-Type Coupe, specifically the 2-litre 300 horsepower one.
Yeah.
Now, me personally, best looking car of the three.
Yeah, it's the most classically styled, isn't it?
Yeah, hands down. I think that will age a hell of a lot better than the Porsches are doing. I think old 911s look a bit silly, but that's just me.
I don't think, as you said, I think the i8 has still held its looks.
That still does look well, but I think give it another 10,
time will tell
years. Time will catch up with it.
Well, time will tell as well, because as you say, it has the potential to either age like the Esprit, as in really, really well, or it has the potential to age like that Aston Martin we saw at Salon Privé.
Well, that wasn't good when it came out, and it wasn't
good
at any point.
Shockingly bad.
Ital design
one,
yeah. That was awful.
Yeah, it was awful.
So this again, specifically, this is the 300 horsepower 2-litre 4-cylinder engine from Jaguar. So it's somewhere in between. You haven't got your 6-pot from your 911, but you're bigger than your 3-pot in your BMW. Now, Jaguar claim on this one 35.8. Now, this is quite good because the real-world average MPG is 34.1.
Yeah.
So you are getting 95% of what the manufacturers claim.
It's also worth mentioning as well, obviously, Honest John have figures on the 3-litre variants as well, and a lot of those are claiming more than what the manufacturer said was possible. The 3-litre 340 getting 102% of the manufacturer's claimed MPG.
Yeah, the 340 one is 115%.
Yeah, that's the automatic though, and obviously that makes it a little bit
even
easier.
To be fair, even the 5-litre V8 550 horsepower one is 113% of claimed figures.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at price-wise, just price-wise, nothing else, it's probably the 5-litre V8 one you'll be comparing.
Yeah, but that was you'll realise in the second part of this video, though, this is the one that's in the mix in a lot of respects.
For many reasons, and we will come on to that. But I am very impressed with that. 95% claimed MPG. Obviously, it's a sports car. And I guess these people, if you are doing a real-world MPG figure, they might not always be driving it cautiously, because if I had a car like that, you probably would give it some every now and then, wouldn't you, over an average of a tank.
I also think as well, the 2-litre is more of a comparison to the i8, because if you're in the mindset of that efficiency, if you're even considering the i8 in the first place, efficiency is on your mind.
Yeah.
So you would go for the lowest capacity option of the F-Type.
Yeah.
If that is enough of a concern for you that you're considering an i8, you would probably want the Jag that has a smaller sort of capacity.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider, obviously, the Jag's putting out about 300 horsepower, clues in the name. So it's only about 50 down.
Yeah, it is the least powerful of the three, but again,
it's the cheapest from
by
factory.
far.
It's the cheapest, exactly.
By far the cheapest. Again, 8-speed transmission as well, so it's one up on the others. No, that's irrelevant. But
well, obviously, it was an older 911 as well, to be fair, that we're comparing it against.
It was up to 2019.
Oh, right.
It was 2015 to 2019 model cycle, so it can. I say the i8 only just stopped with the new one. So 300 horsepower. It is rear-wheel drive. There was a 4-wheel drive option available, but I don't know if it was on the 2-litre. So I think it is a fair comparison. So what we'll do now, so we're looking, again, this is now on the second-hand market. So if you wanted to go out and you wanted to buy an i8 now, your only option is second-hand.
Yeah, as in, I don't know when the discontinue happens, but let's say I was looking to do it in a year.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're discontinuing it. That means they'll probably just finish whatever orders are already in,
Yeah.
should they have any, and then they'll just stop. They won't be taking new orders, I would suspect.
So it's worth commenting that obviously if you're going to look on the second-hand market for the i8, in the UK at least, there's only currently about 115 for sale in the UK as of today.
There is probably a reason for that, and that I know they didn't actually sell that many, so you wouldn't expect that many to be on the second-hand market.
Mm-hmm.
But we were sort of looking at earlier models, so your 2014 models, what they're going for now.
We ranked these because of our reasoning was we were looking for ones that had quite low mileage. Reason being that obviously with the lithium ion battery, the less miles you have on it, the more sort of capacity it'll still have. It won't be as degraded as it potentially could be.
That was the logic in the thought there. So this is how we've ended up with some of the prices that we've got. So the particular example we have here has got 17,752 miles on the clock, which is actually, according to Auto Trader, it is 15,000 below average
for one this age.
For one that age. So that's not that bad, I don't think.
No, not at all. You wouldn't look at something on a 2014 car. You wouldn't look at 17,000 miles and think that's terrible.
No, you look at that and think, wow, that's actually really low on most normal cars.
Sure,
anyway.
yeah.
Now I understand this type of car most of the time is someone's secondary vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always a first one, so they might not drive it that much. But it looks immaculate.
Yeah, it looks in very nice condition.
It's got all the gizmos, your 3D aerial view cameras for parking and all that kind of gubbins.
And what I will say as well is, although the central screen looks a tiny bit dated because it's got quite a thick bezel around it, it has a digital sort of dash display. So obviously the instrument cluster behind the steering wheel is digital, which is very much on trend with what's currently going on.
Yeah.
So again, it shows that there was some forward thinking in that cabin.
In fact, BMW, I think, have only just really started doing this on their normal
And
cars.
I also think, as far as the cabin's concerned on the i8, it actually offers something very different to what all of the competitors do. It's very light and
extremely, yes.
It feels like I mean, if anybody's sat in one, you'll know what I mean. It feels like there's so much air and space in there.
Yeah, and I think that's what they were looking for. Very futuristic, very airy, very modern.
Yeah.
In that sort of thing. Now, this particular one is very much launch spec. For those of you that don't know, it was sort of the silver body with the blue accents around the grille and along the side, little lines and things like that. I don't think it's the launch alloys, but they are better than the launch alloys. So.
I think it looks great.
Yeah, very good looking car, but say 2014 and only done 17,700 miles, and this is currently at £43,500.
Yes.
Now, when you bear in mind what it cost new, that obviously is a hell of a depreciation if you're looking around £114,000.
And also bear in mind that because it didn't sell particularly well, some might try to have made an argument for the fact that obviously rarity could play into its favour. It doesn't.
But in some ways, they probably were a bit too ahead of the time because people
weren't exactly sure of where things were going. But
really
that means, I would also say as well, if you took those 2014 plates off and stuck some private ones on, you could fool anyone that that's a brand new car.
Yeah, you could. And obviously, there has been facelifted now, but there isn't that big of a difference between this and the facelift.
Interior included.
Yeah.
Interior included.
Yeah, they've just updated like the infotainment system.
The bezel on the screen in the middle is a little thick, but someone might be forgiven for thinking, oh, this might just maybe a base spec, where the screen doesn't go all the way out. But if you look at the instrument cluster behind the steering wheel or whatever, it looks thoroughly modern.
Yeah, and I'll credit them for that. So what we looked at again, we had to then go for the other one. So if you're looking at an older i8 second-hand, £43,500.
Sure.
With the other two, the 911 and the Jag, what can you get for that money?
Yep.
So we specifically did look at the 911, obviously. But to get in there with the similar price to that BMW, you have to go way back to 2009.
I will say the one that we've got is a standard Carrera 4, which I think, personally, I actually quite like the styling because it's simple and sleek.
It's got the Turbo S wheels on it. For those of you that don't know what they are slightly different to the normal ones, but they are very nice.
And obviously the one thing the 911 does have working into its favour as well is because the body doesn't change radically between generations. It doesn't look that old.
No, for those of you that know, you
can
obviously tell, but for the average Joe on the street that's maybe not that interested in cars, And again, if you had a private reg on that,
it's not aged that
they
badly.
could be forgiven for thinking it's quite new.
Where things collapse is when we hit the interior, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's not bad though. Do you know what it reminds me of? This is not a negative thing at all. It reminds me a little bit in the centre of the Golf.
Sure, yeah, it reminds me, because I get it, it's that square boxy sort of central console.
Yeah, and they are the same company technically, so they probably do share some bits.
I mean, but there are giveaways to its age. Obviously, it's an analog sort of cluster of dials behind the steering wheel, and there are a lot of buttons in that centre console.
Yes, that's usually a class you can tell when it's an older car.
And the screen is tiny.
Yep, but it is absolutely immaculate in there.
And I will say, the spec is, I love it. So gunmetal grey, understated. I really do like that spec.
One of my favourite rear ends on the Porsche, I have to say.
Sure,
compared to the newer ones with the big light across the back.
No, I do like that, very much so.
Yeah, very, very nice. And again, the leather looks like it's new. That could have come out. So this is on the market for £40,995. Slightly less.
Yeah.
But on Auto Trader, obviously, it does know what all the cars of this particular type are for sale at and the mileage. And this one, it has a little odometer on the side, and this one is classed as a great price, which means it's actually probably cheaper than it should be.
As you say, it's got 42,000 miles on the clock, so significantly more than the i8, obviously, but it's a lot older. That's fine. 42,000 for a 2009 car is extremely good.
It does say 5,000 under average as well. One thing I'll just quickly mention, there was another i8 which was the same price as these at 41,000 bang on. That had 60-odd thousand miles on the clock.
Sure, so you are paying a little more for the i8.
Yeah, you're paying a little bit more for less mileage, but I think that is kind of important, as Rob said, with the sort of battery degradation and things along those lines. This is again the 3.8 litre.
Yeah.
So it's a similar engine to what we classed as in the 2015 car. But
if you're hankering for a Porsche and you've got about 40 grand to spend, I mean,
they are renowned for being bulletproof as well.
They are, and it's tough though, because our last option is also about 40 grand, and it's a hell of a lot newer. Hell of a lot prettier.
Yeah, so obviously the last one, as you probably will know, is the Jaguar F-Type. Now, specifically, we went for the 2-litre one because it's fair, that's what we were comparing. So this one, it's the P300 R Dynamic model.
Yeah.
So still 300 horsepower, but it has the R body kit on it. Mm-hmm. Now that, to me, livens up the car. I know you like a classy sort of slick design.
It's still classic though.
But yeah,
they've not stuck a rear wing on the back of it.
They haven't. That is true. I think they've done what matters. It's very very subtle.
Yeah.
But it does make a difference. So you've got like your carbon around the front intakes. You've got your little front splitter on, and your hood vents are darkened out and things like that.
And you know, it's when I see this spec of obviously the F-Type. This is in gunmetal grey, obviously with the R body pack on it, with no rear wing, nice and. You know, it's got the big R wheels as well, which it helps massively.
It massively helps.
But it makes me wish they hadn't messed with the front end when I see them in these specs, because it didn't need anything.
No,
it just didn't.
It's perfect, isn't it?
It's perfect the way it is.
Perfect rear end as well, which they haven't changed, but it is nice from the back. The one thing actually I will mention, I love on the 2-litre ones is the big central exhaust compared to the other ones.
Yeah, I like the V6 with the 2 pipes.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Center.
I like it,
but there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't put me off though. No,
that's
so interior-wise, obviously this is a 2018 car, so it really does look bang up to date on the inside. Granted,
it essentially is the one that phased out the current line.
As you say, granted, I might also add though, unlike the i8, this also has a analog sort of dial cluster behind the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look as futuristic as the i8 does.
Now I know you could actually get this with digital, but specifically
for the price point,
not on this model. Yeah.
For the price point we're looking at, but I will say it is a 2018 car with only 9,000 miles on the clock. So you're getting what is largely a new car in a lot of ways.
This again, it does specify that this is a good price. It's close to market value of what the average is for these cars for sale in the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
Mileage wise, it's 1,500 under your average mileage.
Yeah.
But what I will say is it's got a lovely Alcantara centered seats with leather on the outside, which look phenomenal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It looks really good. Yeah.
I love the pop-up air vents from the top.
Mm-hmm.
They come up when you turn it on, and again, thoroughly modern, extremely good-looking car, and probably in one of the exact specs I would pick.
Me too, yeah. And I might also add as well, I don't think it's gonna age badly.
No, well,
to be honest,
this specific design is from when the car came out new, as in looks-wise.
Yeah.
And you could drive that out tomorrow and it would look bang on.
Yeah, no, it looks brilliant.
And it's got the panoramic sunroof, so you will get that light in there that you do like in the BMW.
Yeah, you do get that sort of airy cabin going on. I think there are only a few cars around where you could roll them out sort of any year and it still looks bang up to date. I think the Aston Martin DBS from 2005 is one of those where you could just roll that out tomorrow and people wouldn't care less. They'd just think it was amazing.
Yeah.
Sure, there are a couple of things you would do. If you brushed up the interior a little bit and gave it some proper LED headlamps, you could roll that out tomorrow.
Yeah, design-wise, that is it's perfect. Yeah.
Design-wise, you can't do better. I think the F-Type, in the current spec, we've got it here, does a very good baby imitation of that sort of feel. It gives me the same feeling.
Yeah.
Gives me that feeling. Timeless. Yeah, it gives me that timeless design sort of.
I would agree. Again, the i8 as well. You could
you
could literally launch that car tomorrow, and to me, it would still look brand new.
However, I think history will be kinder on the design to this F-Type, and I feel that if I was to drop 40k on a car, I would honestly say that styling-wise, I'd be more comfortable buying the F-Type, purely based on the fact that I feel like it's a safer bet for. In 10 years' time, it's still going to look crisp and fresh.
Yeah, the one thing I will have to say is I think the investment-wise, you're better off with the 911. Absolutely no doubt in my mind.
Sure thing, they hold value much better.
They do hold value. And also, as well, 911s tend to have a cycle. So if you look at older 911s now, so the 996 era, from the 90s and early 2000s, they're now starting to go back up in price.
Oh yeah, that
specific models anyway.
That 911 from 2009, well, it already shows that it's held its value very well already.
Yeah, because it's still 40 grand.
Exactly, and it will bottom out, but you know that once it's bottomed out, it will come back.
Yeah.
If you are looking to spend that 40 grand on the 911 as an investment, it's your second car. So you don't use it every day. You just want something for the weekends. You could buy that 911. You could keep it for, 20 years. The bomb-proof.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't lose that much on the rebound because it will start to appreciate again.
Yeah, and I agree. That as long as you keep the mileage down
and as long as you look
after it, keep the service history up. Same can't be said for the i8. Obviously, you can't predict the future, but I can see that car just keep on falling until it's essentially worthless.
Definitely the same for the Jag. I mean, Jesus, you can pick up XKs for like
4 grand, 5 grand.
Well, if you go for an XK8 from before that, you can pick them up for outrageously cheap money.
I mean, as a percentage of the actual cost new, I don't know how it would come down. I think it's like they weren't that much new compared to
the XK8.
But it
doesn't matter how much new it was when it's only worth like 2 grand. That's really bad.
Yeah, that is true. So I think that's actually a good place to wrap this up. I think that is actually a good topic to look at. And I think we'll come back around to something similar in other episodes.
Yeah.
But again, for all you guys listening, if you do want us to discuss any topics, let us know in the social media links below or just in the comments on YouTube if you are watching. We will discuss them for you. And if not, we will see you again next week.
See you in a bit.
See you later. Bye-bye.